My dad is a real piece of work. He's got this crazy idea that the girl next door is always the one, so you gotta lock that down early. Because of that half-baked advice, I've spent the last 13 years as a free, on-call butler for the crybaby who lives next door. The day our final exams ended, the most popular guy in school asked her out in front of everyone. The whole school was waiting to see me, the guy who'd been trailing her like a lost puppy for years, finally get humiliated. Instead, she ignored the campus king, pulled out her phone, and yelled loud enough for everyone to hear, "Leo, if you don't get back here and make dinner, I'm literally going to starve to death." Chapter 1, Leo, look, it's Brandon Carter. He's got roses. Oh my God, is he going to ask Chloe Davis out? This is going to be good. The princess Leo's been guarding for years is finally about to get snatched up. The final bell of senior year had just rung. I was packing my bag, my mind already on what I needed to pick up from the store for the little tyrant at home. The chatter from my classmates was just loud enough to drift into my ears, each word landing like a small stone. I looked up, following their gaze. Down below, by the main entrance, Brandon Carter was practically glowing in his crisp white polo shirt. He was holding a huge bouquet of red roses, a look of nervous anticipation on his face as he stared toward our classroom door. And his target, Chloe Davis, was slowly, deliberately putting the last of her books in her backpack. She was wearing a pale yellow sundress today that made her skin look almost luminous. Her long, dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail that swayed with every small movement, cute as hell. The guys and girls around her were starting to buzz, a mix of wolf whistles and excited squeals filling the air. "Chloe, look downstairs. The king is here for his queen." Chloe wrinkled her small nose, her face a mask of indifference. She just moved a little faster, zipping her backpack shut. I scoffed. The princess I'd been guarding? These people had no idea. My old man, Frank Hayes, a charming but totally unreliable disaster of a father, pointed at the sniffling little girl who had just moved in next door when I was 5. She did nothing but follow me around, crying. "Son," he'd said, slinging an arm around my shoulder. "Remember, the girl next door is always the one. You gotta lock that down early." Because of that one ridiculous sentence, my life took a sharp left turn off the main road. Chloe falls and scrapes her knee. I had to carry her home. Chloe gets picked on. I had to go start a fight. Chloe's hungry. I had to cook for her. This locking down had been going on for 13 years. I went from being a hellraiser who ran wild all over the neighborhood to a Michelin star babysitter bodyguard combo, all for free. The entire school knew I was Chloe Davis's shadow, the guy she could summon with a snap of her fingers. They thought I was totally whipped. And now, her Prince Charming had arrived. Brandon Carter, rich family, handsome, star of the football team. The guy every girl at Northwood High dreamed about. Everyone thought he was the perfect match for Chloe. And me, Leo Hayes, son of divorced parents, living with a deadbeat dad, the guy who spent most of his time debating grocery prices and scrubbing pans. I was supposed to have been kicked to the curb ages ago. My desk mate, Matt, nudged me with his elbow, a look of pity on his face. "Hang in there, man. Plenty of fish in the sea." I shot him a look and went back to packing my things. A beat-up insulated lunchbox and 2 cookbooks I'd checked out from the library. That was the sum total of my senior year. Pathetic. The cheering downstairs got louder. "Brandon! Brandon! Brandon!" Chloe finally, reluctantly, slung her backpack over her shoulder. Surrounded by a crowd of expectant classmates, she walked out of the room. My eyes followed her. I watched her walk down the stairs, watched her stop right in front of Brandon. His handsome face was flushed. He held the bouquet out to her, his voice clear and filled with a genuine, youthful sincerity. "Chloe, I've had a crush on you for a long time. Ever since I first saw you at the freshman orientation assembly, The crowd went silent, everyone holding their breath, waiting for the heroine's answer. My own heart, for some stupid reason, felt like it was hanging by a thread. Not from nerves or hope. It was annoyance. A 13-year-long annoyance. If she said yes, would I finally be free? No more washing mountains of her socks. No more getting dragged out of bed by a midnight phone call because she wanted ramen. No more listening to her complain with tears in her eyes that the barbecue sauce on her ribs wasn't sweet enough. Actually, that sounded pretty good. I watched Chloe. She was looking down, her long eyelashes casting shadows on her cheeks. making it impossible to read her expression. She didn't reach for the flowers. The seconds ticked by. Brandon's arms had to be getting tired. Whispers started rippling through the crowd. Why isn't she taking them? No way. She's turning down Brandon Carter? Who does she think she is? Just then, Chloe moved. She pulled her phone from her pocket, not even glancing at Brandon, and dialed the number. A second later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I froze. Every single eye in the classroom snapped to me. Their expressions were a cocktail of contempt, mockery, and morbid curiosity. What the hell? She's calling Leo right now. Probably needs him to come rescue her. Wow, she's really milking this simp thing for all it's worth. I took a deep breath and, under the weight of everyone's stares, hit the answer button. Chloe's voice came through the line, stuffy from a blocked nose, soft and whiny. It wasn't loud, but in the dead silence of the school entrance, it carried to every single person. Now, if you don't get back here and make dinner, I'm literally going to starve to death. Chapter 2. The air turned to ice. The crowd downstairs was completely silent. In the classroom, my classmates who had been waiting for the drama to unfold now just stared, jaws agape, like they'd just seen a ghost. And Brandon Carter, the campus king still holding his bouquet of roses, had an expression that was a spectacular train wreck, shifting from hope to disbelief, then to humiliation, before finally settling on a deep, mottled shade of purple. As for me, I was holding my phone, listening to her completely shameless demand, and 13 years of suppressed rage finally erupted like a volcano. I am so done. Finals are over. I'm a free man. Chloe, did you forget you have hands? If you're hungry, find something to eat yourself. I'm on vacation. On strike. I quit. After roaring, I slammed the end call button and threw my phone onto the desk with a loud clatter. Finally, the world was quiet. My classmates' expressions had shifted from watching a joke to watching a lunatic. Matt was speechless. It took him a moment to find his voice. Elio. Dude, that was insane. Are you just going for broke now? I gave a bitter laugh, grabbed my beat-up lunchbox and cookbooks, and walked out without a second glance at the scene downstairs. I didn't care about the campus king or his stupid public confession. From this day forward, I, Leo Hayes, was living for myself. I strode out of the classroom, out of the building, and out of the school gates. Behind me, there was a dead silence, broken only by my phone, which had started vibrating violently again on the desk. Screw it. Someone else can deal with her. I got home, locked the door, and the entire world went blissfully quiet. It was perfect. I collapsed onto the sofa and let out a long, deep breath. 13 years. I had finally escaped the clutches of that little crybaby. I was already planning my perfect summer. Playing basketball, gaming online, maybe a road trip. Doing all the things I wanted to do, but never had time for, because I was always on Chloe duty. My thoughts drifted, and I fell asleep. In my dream, I was finally free of Chloe. I got into a college on the West Coast, thousands of miles away. I'd never have to listen to her whining again, never have to be her personal chef and butler. I was smiling in my sleep. Bang, bang, bang. A series of frantic, heavy pounds on the door ripped me from my perfect dream. I groaned, running a hand through my hair. Who the hell was that? Leo Hayes. Open this door. It was Chloe's voice, thick with tears, but also laced with a terrifying amount of fury. I shot up from the sofa, instantly awake. What was she doing here? Now, open the damn door. You had the guts to hang up on me. Now have the guts to open up. The door was rattling in its frame. It sounded like she was trying to break it down. My scalp prickled. What was her problem now? I tried to ignore her, pulling a pillow over my head. Now, if you don't open this door, I'm calling the cops. I'll tell them you kidnapped me. I sighed in utter defeat and dragged myself to the door. I must have owed her a huge debt in a past life. The second I opened the door, I was met with a pair of red, swollen eyes. Chloe stood there, her pretty yellow sundress all wrinkled, two distinct tear tracks running down her face. And in her hand, wait, what was she holding? My SAT score report and my driver's license? The moment she saw me, she threw them right at my face, her voice a choked sob. Now, you are the biggest jerk in the world. The papers fluttered and smacked against my cheek before drifting to the floor. I was stunned. What is this about? I asked, bending down to pick them up. A horrible feeling began to creep into my stomach. Chloe's tears were falling like a broken faucet. What is this about? You have the nerve to ask me what this is about. She pointed a trembling finger at me, her sobs getting louder. You've been planning this all along, haven't you? You were just waiting to ditch me. You deliberately applied to a school all the way across the country. You just want to get as far away from me as possible, don't you? My brain felt like it had short-circuited. Applications? When did I submit my applications? I was planning on waiting until the official acceptance letters came out to decide. I frantically looked at the documents in my hand. It wasn't my SAT scores. It was a printout from the Common App. And there, listed under submitted applications, was a list I didn't recognize. First choice, Atherton University. Major, archaeology. Second choice. Third choice. I didn't even look at the rest. The first one was enough to make my vision go dark. Atherton University? Are you kidding me? My grades and scores were good, but an Ivy-level school like Atherton was a total fantasy. And even weirder was the essay attached. The writing was elegant, polished, with a hint of clever wit. It was Chloe's writing style. My head snapped up to look at her, my voice trembling. Chloe, did you mess with my college applications? My shout made her flinch, and the tears fell faster, but she jutted out her chin, her expression defiant. I did it for your own good. For my own good? I was shaking with rage, my fingers crushing the printout. For my own good, you apply me to Atherton? Do you have any idea what my scores are? Do you know that this is the same as getting me rejected from everywhere? I know, she suddenly yelled, her red eyes staring me down. Of course I know what your scores are. I calculated your potential. Your GPA is a 3.9. Your SAT is a 1550. It's more than enough for Atherton. I was completely and utterly floored. A 1,550? Was she delusional? I knew what I got on the SAT. I'd have to be a genius to break 1,400 on a good day. Are you insane? I stared at her in disbelief. I'm not insane. Chloe pulled a thick stack of papers out of her small purse and shoved them against my chest. See for yourself. It was a stack of tests. All of my practice SATs and major exams from junior and senior year. In the top right corner of each test, 2 scores were written in red ink. One was the official score, mostly hovering around the 1380 to 1420 range. The other, written in tiny, neat script right next to it, was consistently above 1500. And next to the scores were dense, detailed notes. Here, trick question in the reading comprehension. Leo will definitely fall for this. Minus 10 points. Here, in the second part of the math problem, his method will overlook one possible scenario. Minus 20 points. The essay prompt is tricky. His thesis will be weak. Max score, 4 out of 6. Every question, every single point deduction, was analyzed with terrifying precision, as if she were living inside my brain. And the final true potential score she had calculated was shockingly close to the 1550 she claimed I had. I held the papers, my hands shaking violently. What? What is this? How did you? Chloe sniffled, tears still streaming down her face, but her tone held a hint of smugness and hurt pride. Because you're an idiot. You always make the same mistakes. I could explain it to you 100 times, and you still wouldn't get it. If I didn't watch out for you, you'd probably get scammed into buying a bridge. I was speechless. I looked down at the test in my hands, then back up at the little crybaby who was a mess of tears and snot. 13 years. I had always thought I was the one taking care of her. I thought she was a helpless, clueless little girl who only knew how to cry, complain, and cause trouble. But it turns out, all this time, I was the idiot being looked after. I was the one who, without her, might not have even gotten into a decent college. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving my mind completely blank. Chapter 3 still. You can't just go and mess with my college applications without my permission. It took me a long time to find my voice again amidst the shock, but it lacked any real conviction. Seeing my anger deflate, Chloe's crying subsided into little sniffles. She looked at me with an expression so pitiful, she resembled a puppy abandoned by the entire world. I did ask you, she mumbled. When did you ask me? I frowned. The night before our last final, she said, her lip trembling. I asked you if you wanted to go to Atherton, if you wanted to go to the same college as me. You said yes in my wildest dreams. That was me talking in my sleep. How does that count? And what's with the archaeology major? I rubbed my temples, which were starting to throb. I have zero interest in that. I asked Mr. Hayes, Chloe said, puffing out her chest with a renewed sense of righteousness. Frank said you loved digging holes in the backyard when you were a kid and fighting with the dog over old bones. He was sure you'd be interested in archaeology. Frank Hayes. That damn old man. I'm going to kill him. How could he bring up the stupid things I did when I was 5? I took a deep breath, then another, forcing the curse words back down my throat. Now, it wasn't the time to deal with him. What about you? I looked at her. What did you apply for? Chloe's eyes lit up, and for the first time, her face showed an emotion other than crying. Atherton University, food science and nutrition. I paused for a second before it clicked. So you had this all planned out? You still here. You knew what my real scores were. You figured out how to get me into the same school as you, and you even picked out my major for me. My stare made her a little nervous. Her eyes darted away as she muttered, well, I was just trying to help. Help me. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. One of us digs up ancient recipes, the other one cooks them. Chloe, you've really thought this through, haven't you? Is this your plan to get me to cook for you for the rest of your life? Is that a problem? She suddenly looked up, her eyes wide and challenging. Her expression basically said, I'm giving you the honor of cooking for me. You should be grateful. Her logic completely disarmed me. 13 years of being her butler had conditioned me to this kind of thinking. It was like muscle memory. What could I even say? If I said no, she'd cry a river big enough to flood the house, and then find 100 different ways to make me give in anyway. If I said yes, my grand Declaration of Independence would be officially over. I looked at her face, still streaked with tears but set with a stubborn determination, and I just felt tired, emotionally exhausted. Chloe, I sighed, placing the papers on the table. We need to talk. No. She immediately grew defensive and took a step back. You're just going to yell at me again. You already yelled at me on the phone. As she spoke, her eyes started to well up again. I held up my hands in surrender. Okay, I won't yell. Can we please just talk like adults? She looked at me suspiciously, then gave a hesitant nod. I pulled out a chair and sat down, gesturing to the one opposite me. Seat. She sat down obediently, her hands placed neatly on her knees like a first grader waiting to be scolded by the teacher. Seeing her like this, the anger I felt somehow dissipated. Chloe, I said, trying to keep my voice calm and even. We're not kids anymore. I have my own plans, and you have your own life. We can't be tied together forever. Why not? She shot back immediately. Frank said you're going to marry me someday. My vision swam. Frank Hayes. It was always Frank Hayes. What kind of ridiculous nonsense has that old man been feeding her all these years? That was my dad talking nonsense when he was drunk. I said through gritted teeth. Don't listen to him. I believe him. Chloe's stubborn streak flared up. And I believe what you said, too. What did I say? You said you would always take care of me. She looked at me, her eyes red and accusatory. You said you'd never let me go hungry, never let anyone bully me, and never leave me alone. My mouth opened, but no words came out. I had said all of that. When her parents died in an accident, and she was sent to live with us, crying until she couldn't breathe. When she got her first period and was curled up in bed, terrified and in pain. When she was ostracized by the other kids at school and cried alone in a corner. Over and over again, I had told her, don't worry, I'm here. But my idea of taking care of her and her idea of taking care of her were two completely different things. Looking into her clear, determined eyes, I suddenly realized this problem was far more complicated than I had imagined. Chloe, I tried a different approach, attempting to reason with her. Look, that guy Brandon, he's handsome, a great student, comes from good family. A lot of girls like him. He asked you out today. Why didn't you say yes? Honestly, does his cooking taste as good as yours? Chloe interrupted me, asking with a completely serious expression. I was taken aback. Does he know I don't eat onions, ginger, or garlic? Will he get up in the middle of the night to make me noodles when I'm hungry? Will he make me hot ginger tea when I have cramps? Will he call me an idiot but still spend hours explaining a math problem to me until 2 in the morning? Her barrage of questions left me speechless. I opened my mouth, but all I could manage was a lame. He could learn. I don't want him. Chloe shook her head, her gaze frighteningly firm. I only want you. Leo, I only want you. Her words were like a stone dropped into a calm lake, sending ripples spreading through me. I looked at her, and my heart skipped a beat. A long silence fell over the living room, broken only by the sound of cicadas buzzing outside. And grew old. An unfortunately timed noise shattered the strange quiet. Chloe's face flushed crimson. She clutched her stomach, looking away as she mumbled, I haven't eaten anything since lunch. Right. Life plans, independence, college applications. All of that could wait. The most important thing in the universe was feeding the little tyrant. I stood up with a sigh of resignation and started walking toward the kitchen, asking over my shoulder in a grumpy voice, what do you want? Barbecue ribs? Buffalo wings? Podruast? All of them. Her voice, still thick and nasal from crying, was suddenly cheerful. I turned and shot her a death glare. She immediately shrank back, giving me a sheepish, tear-stained smile. What else could I do? I walked into the kitchen I had spent the last 13 years in and tied on the faded apron. My revolution had failed, and it had failed spectacularly. Chapter 4 on the day the official scores were released, I became the biggest dark horse in our school's history. 1550, not a single point off. When I saw the number on the College Board website, I was completely numb. My dad, Frank, was even more stunned than I was. He had a cigarette hanging from his lips and leaned in so close to the screen that the ash fell onto his pants without him noticing. Es son. Is that your score? I nodded numbly. Slap. Frank smacked his own thigh, his face flushed with excitement. I knew it. I knew my son was a genius. Takes after me. He definitely got my brains. I ignored him. My gaze fell on Chloe, who was sitting next to me, delicately eating the chilled smoothie bowl I had just made her. Sensing my stare, she looked up and smiled, her eyes curving into crescents. A tiny speck of granola was stuck to the corner of her mouth. Her smile was smug and proud, as if she had earned the score herself. Well, in a way, she had. Matt's call came almost immediately, his voice so excited he sounded like he was the one who got a perfect score. Now, holy crap, 1,550. Are you some kind of god? You were hiding that all this time? The entire school is freaking out. Spill it, man. Did you secretly hire some elite private tutor? I glanced at Chloe and gave a wry smile. Something like that. Elite, one-on-one, and she doesn't even make her own meals. Huh, Matt was confused. I didn't explain, just mumbled a few words and hung up. The class group chat was already exploding. WEF. Leo Hayes got a 1550. Is that real? Is the site bugged? I checked it, it's legit. The school already posted the honors list by the front gate. That's impossible. Didn't he usually get like 1400s? Dark horse. This is the definition of a super dark horse. So, to everyone who called him whipped, how does that crow taste? Turns out the genius was just pretending to be average to experience normal life, huh? The same voices that had mocked me were now filled with shock and awe. Someone even started a theory that I had pretended to be an average student to better get close to and protect the real genius, Chloe. Think about it. A secret genius who cooks for Chloe every day and walks her to and from school. That's some next-level romance novel stuff, right there. OMG, when you put it like that. It's actually super sweet. That's true love. Brandon Carter who? He can't even compete with a secret genius. In the face of undeniable results, public opinion shifted with breathtaking speed, and the mastermind behind it all was calmly enjoying the fruits of my labor. Leo, I want another bowl, Chloe said, pushing her empty bowl toward me. Éclair de hair. Don't push it. Too much cold stuff is bad for you. But it's so hot, she pouted, starting to give me her signature puppy dog eyes. I was completely powerless against that look. Half a bowl. That's it, I grumbled, snatching the bowl from her and scooping a small amount into it. Frank watched from the side, chuckling. À ta bois, son. Look at you, wearing the pants in this relationship. I didn't bother responding. Wearing the pants. Not a chance. I was just completely and utterly wrapped around her little finger. Soon after, Chloe's scores were released. 1580. Unsurprisingly, she was the valedictorian. When her score came out, the group chat erupted again. A genius and a super genius. It's official. They're in-game. I'm throwing away the key. Who was it that said Leo's princess was going to get snatched? Get over here. This is clearly a case of two top-tier people keeping it in the family. I take back everything I said. Brandon Carter is definitely not worthy. I stare at my phone screen, a strange mix of emotions churning inside me. This so-called truth and redemption didn't bring me much satisfaction, because I was the only one who knew how much of a fraud this genius persona was. Without Chloe, I'd probably be a regular student heading to a state school. Atherton University would have been an impossible dream. Leo, Chloe said suddenly. What? I put down my phone. She looked at me, her eyes sparkling. Our application should be a sure thing now, right? My heart sank a little. That's what she really cared about. Yeah, it's a sure thing, I said flatly. Atherton's acceptance rate was brutally low, but with our scores, we were practically guaranteed a spot. And the archaeology major she had picked for me was notoriously under-enrolled, meaning the entry requirements were slightly lower. The words archaeology major still gave me a headache. Are you really that determined to make me go dig holes for a living? I couldn't help but ask. Chloe blinked, looking innocent. Frank said you liked it. It was always Frank. I turned and shot a death glare at my old man, who was humming happily to himself. Frank caught my eye and, seeming to understand, gave me a conspiratorial wink. Son, it's called professional synergy, you get me? In the future, you'll be in charge of researching ancient cooking methods, and Chloe will be in charge of recreating the food. It's perfect. I'm starting to think I was adopted. The following weeks were spent waiting for acceptance letters. In the meantime, Chloe and I had become legends at our high school. We were the most talked about genius couple of our graduating class. Countless versions of our love story circulated on school forums. One version claimed I had gone from slacker to genius just for Chloe. Another said we were childhood sweethearts who had been secretly engaged for years, and our test scores were just a testament to our love. The most ridiculous version claimed I was the secret heir to some powerful, reclusive family, and I was just at a public high school to experience normal life while protecting my childhood fiancé. Reading these posts was just absurd. The reality was far more ridiculous. I wasn't a genius. I was just a chef who'd been backed into a corner. And Chloe wasn't some delicate flower who needed protecting. She was the great and powerful Oz, pulling all the strings from behind the curtain. As for Brandon Carter, he hadn't been seen since his very public rejection. I heard he decided to go to college down south, probably to get as far away from this town as possible. When I ran into old classmates, the way they looked at me had completely changed. The pity and contempt were gone, replaced by envy and respect. Leo, you're my hero, man. Dude, when you get to Atherton, you gotta look out for us mortals. All I could do was offer a tight, awkward smile. This victory, born from a misunderstanding, made my skin crawl. I almost missed the days when they all thought I was just a simp. At least that version of me felt real. Now, I was living inside a massive lie. A lie meticulously crafted by Chloe Davis, starring me as the genius. And I didn't even have the power to write my own lines. Chapter 5, my Atherton University acceptance letter, arrived on the same day as Chloe's. The two thick crimson envelopes sat side by side on the kitchen table, practically glowing. I picked up mine and tore it open. Dear Mr. Hayes, we are pleased to offer you admission to the College of Arts and Sciences, with an intended major in archaeology. I stared at the word archaeology for a long time. It was official. I was really going to spend my future playing in the dirt with pottery shards. And it was all thanks to the little tyrant next to me, who was hugging her own letter and grinning like the Cheshire Cat. Are you happy? Chloe leaned in, resting her head on my shoulder, her voice bright and cheerful. I put the letter down on the table, my face expressionless. I'm so happy I could dig a hole and bury myself in it. Don't do that, she said, wrapping her arms around my arm and giving a little shake. If you're buried, who's going to cook for me? I get it. My entire value, summarized, personal chef. Frank was more excited than either of us. He booked a private room at our favorite restaurant that night and invited all the neighbors to celebrate his son and his daughter-in-law getting into a top-tier university. At dinner, Frank's face was red from the beer. He slung an arm around my shoulder, his words slurring as he boasted to the table. My son always knew he was smart, a real chip off the old block. And my daughter-in-law here, Chloe, I tell ya, they don't make him like her anymore. Our two families, it's destiny. The neighboring aunts and uncles all chimed in. That's right, Leo and Chloe, a match made in heaven. Frank, you're a lucky man. You'll be planning a wedding before you know it. Chloe was blushing from all the compliments, looking down at her plate, but the corners of her mouth were turned up in a smile. I sat next to her, feeling like I was sitting on a bed of nails. Being blessed by everyone like this filled me with a strange sense of dread. It was as if my entire life had been sealed and delivered with the phrase, "match made in heaven." Was my life's purpose really just to be Chloe Davis's personal chef? No, I refused to accept that. College was a new beginning. Once we were at Atherton, 1,000 miles from home, I was sure I could finally break free. I made a silent vow to myself. On the train to Boston, Frank and Chloe's aunt came to see us off. My dad was stuffing my suitcase into the overhead rack while rattling off instructions. Once you get to campus, you take good care of Chloe. You hear me? It's not easy for a girl to be so far from home. She's a picky eater, so you need to put in the extra effort. Don't let her starve. And your majors are on opposite ends of the campus. It's a bit of a walk, but you better make the trip every day. Don't you dare complain about being tired. I felt a headache coming on. We hadn't even arrived yet, and he was already tightening the leash. Chloe stood beside him, nodding like a bobblehead doll and adding, "That's right, Leo. You better listen to Frank." I gave her a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Wouldn't dream of it, Your Highness." The train began to move. I watched the platform recede, Frank and her aunt shrinking into the distance. I felt no sadness about leaving, only the exhilarating thrill of a prison break. Atherton, here I come. My new life was about to begin, or so I thought. After we arrived and finished our orientation, I discovered that the situation was far more dire than I could have imagined. The archaeology department had a gender ratio of 10 to 1. Out of 30 students in my year, only 3 were girls, and each one looked like they could fend for themselves in a zombie apocalypse. And because my SAT score was ridiculously high for an archaeology major, I was immediately treated like a rare artifact. The genius who had chosen their obscure department became an instant legend. The department had met with me personally, clapping me on the shoulder and saying with grave sincerity, "Leo, the future of archaeology rests on your shoulders." "Sir, I think you've got the wrong guy. My future belongs in a kitchen." Meanwhile, Chloe's department, food science and nutrition, was apparently a hot spot for beautiful people. On the first day of classes, Chloe, with her innocent face and valedictorian title, became the talk of her college. Countless upperclassmen and freshmen alike were already trying to win her over. I got all this intel from Matt. He had also gotten into a university in Boston, just across the city. "Leo, you gotta keep a close eye on her," Matt said, his voice filled with concern during a call. "Your perfect little angel is being circled by a pack of wolves." I scoffed. "Let them have her. I could use the peace and quiet." "Do they?" "No." Matt protested. "Don't you remember what your dad said? Lock it down early. Get lost." I hung up, but my mind was anything but calm. Honestly, I didn't want Chloe to start her own new life. Find a boyfriend, have a normal college romance, and completely forget about her free butler. That way, I could finally be free too. I started to deliberately pull away. She'd call me, complaining that the dining hall food was disgusting. I told her to deal with it. She'd text that the hot water in her dorm was out. I told her to call maintenance. She'd say she was scared to walk back to her dorm alone at night. I told her to find a friend to walk with. I thought my cold shoulder would make her give up. I thought with all the amazing guys at Atherton, someone would eventually take my place. But I had underestimated Chloe's persistence, and I had overestimated my own resolve. A week later, I was in my dorm room, playing video games with my roommates. My phone rang. It was Chloe. I answered with a sigh of annoyance. "What is it now?" But it wasn't her usual whining or complaining on the other end. It was a blast of loud music and the drunken shouts of a group of guys. My heart plummeted. "Chloe, where are you?" A strange guy's voice, slick and arrogant, came on the line. "You must be Leo, right? Your girlfriend is wasted at a bar called the Velvet Room. You should probably come get her." The word girlfriend was like a needle jabbing me right in the chest. Before I could correct him, he hung up. I stood there, frozen, my mind a complete blank. Chloe? At a bar? Wasted? She hated places like that. She couldn't even handle a single wine cooler. My roommate noticed my expression. "Hey, Hayes, you good?" I grabbed my jacket and bolted for the door, my voice shaking. "I have to go out." I ran like a madman out of the dorm, across the quad, and hailed a cab on the street. The Velvet Room. Go fast. The cold night air rushed in through the open window, chilling my face. There was only one thought in my head. She couldn't be in trouble. She just couldn't. In that moment, all my plans of distancing myself, of freedom, of a new life, they all went up in smoke. All I knew was that if anything happened to Chloe, I would lose my mind. It turned out that 13 years of habit weren't just a routine. They were chains binding us together so tightly I couldn't tell where I ended and she began. I thought I wanted to break them. But the second they were in danger of snapping, I realized I cared about them more than anyone. Leo Hayes, was well and truly screwed. Chapter 6. The taxi screeched to a halt in front of the Velvet Room. I threw a 20 at the driver without waiting for change and plunged into the bar. The music was a physical force vibrating through my bones. Strobing lights flashed across a sea of bodies, and the air was thick with the smell of stale beer, cheap perfume, and desperation. Frowning, I frantically scanned the dance floor and the crowded booths, searching for her. Finally, in a dark corner booth, I saw her. Chloe was slumped over the table, her hair a mess, her face flushed a deep red. She was surrounded by 3 or 4 guys. They all had predatory looks in their eyes, and one of them was holding a drink, trying to force it to her lips. Come on, gorgeous, just one more. Don't be like that. Yeah, Julian wants you to have a drink. That's a compliment. A hot wave of rage exploded in my chest. I stormed over, shoved the guy with the drink so hard he stumbled backward, and pulled Chloe behind me. What the hell do you think you're doing? I snarled, my eyes blazing. The guys were startled, but their surprise quickly morphed into sneering contempt. The one in the lead, who I guessed was Julian, was handsome in a slimy sort of way. He smirked. Who the hell are you? This doesn't concern you. I'm her boyfriend. The words ripped out of my throat before I could even think about them. Even I was surprised to hear them, but there was no time to second-guess it. Julian looked me up and down, a cruel laugh escaping his lips. Boyfriend? Funny, she didn't mention one. Besides, even if she has one, she's with me now. Say that one more time. I dare you. I said, my hands clenched into fists, my knuckles white. I said, she's with me now, Julian repeated, his eyes glinting with challenge. What are you going to do about it? Fight me? His cronies moved to surround me, cracking their knuckles and grinning. I stared back at them, my blood running cold and hot at the same time. A fight? Son, I've been getting into fights to protect the girl behind me since I was 5 years old. I've had more practice than you've had hot dinners. Just as I was about to throw the first punch, Chloe stirred behind me. She lifted her head groggily, her eyes finding mine. They widened, and then she let out a loud sob. Now, you finally came. Crying, she staggered to her feet and threw herself into my arms. They were being mean to me. They tried to make me drink. Her warm body collided with mine, smelling of cheap vodka and the familiar sweet scent that was just Chloe. My heart, which had been pounding with rage, instantly melted. All my anger evaporated, replaced by a fierce, aching tenderness. I gently patted her back, my voice soft. It's okay. I'm here now. Julian's face twisted into an ugly mask. The prize he had been hunting was now clinging to another man right in front of him. He was clearly humiliated. I don't care who you are, kid. If you think you're walking out of here with her tonight, you're dead wrong, he spat. I looked up, my eyes like chips of ice. Is that so? In one fluid motion, while still holding Chloe, I lashed out with my foot, kicking Julian square in the stomach. Oof! He let out a choked gasp and doubled over, clutching his gut as he dropped to his knees. His friends stared in shock for a second before they snapped out of it, roaring as they lunged at me. I pushed Chloe further behind me, my voice low and urgent. Stay put. Then I met their charge. It was chaos. The people in the bar screamed and scattered, creating a makeshift arena around us. I don't know how many hits I took. I just moved on instinct, throwing punches, blocking, dodging. The only thought in my head was, don't let them get to Chloe. 13 years of fighting for her hadn't gone to waste. After a few minutes, all of Julian's friends were on the floor, groaning and clutching various body parts. I stood there, breathing heavily, and rubbed my jaw where one of them had landed a solid punch. It stung like hell. I turned to look at the girl who had been standing behind me the whole time. Chloe wasn't crying anymore. She was just staring at me, her eyes wide. There was no fear in them. Instead, they were shining with a strange, intense light. A light that was as hot as a flame. I walked over to Julian, who was still kneeling on the floor, and looked down at him. "So, can I take her home now?" He glared up at me, his face pale with pain and slick with sweat, his eyes filled with hatred. You just wait. This isn't over." I didn't have time for his threats. I turned back to Chloe, took off my jacket, and wrapped it around her shoulders. Then I scooped her up into my arms. "Ah," she yelped, instinctively wrapping her arms around my neck. "Don't move," I said gruffly. She immediately went still, burying her face in my chest like a frightened kitten. I carried her out of that grimy place, feeling the stunned and respectful gazes of the bar's other patrons on my back. Outside, the cool night air hit us, making the cut on my face throb even more. The girl in my arms, however, was starting to squirm. "Lau," she mumbled into my shirt. You were really hot back there." I stopped walking and looked down at her. She was looking up at me, her eyes impossibly bright. There wasn't a trace of drunkenness in them. In that instant, I understood. "Chloe," I said, my voice dangerously low, "were you faking it?" She flinched, her eyes darting away guiltily. I only had a little bit. My face gets red easily." "So, this was all a setup?" I felt like my head was going to explode. "You went to a bar on purpose, had them call me, just to force me to come here?" "Well, you were ignoring me," she suddenly shot back, her voice thick with hurt, her eyes welling up with real tears this time. "You didn't text me or call me for a whole week. Did you find some other girl to cook for?" Some other girl to cook for? That's where her mind went. I could feel my blood pressure skyrocket. Do you have any idea how dangerous that was? What if I hadn't gotten here in time? I yelled, the fear from earlier returning. "But I knew you would," she said with absolute certainty, tightening her grip around my neck. "I knew you wouldn't be able to stand it." Her voice was soft, laced with a familiar dependence and a confidence that infuriated and captivated me at the same time. All the anger inside me was doused as if by a bucket of ice water. Wouldn't be able to stand it. She was right. I couldn't. The realization left me feeling completely helpless. I stood there holding her on the dark street, looking at her face, so close to mine. Her long eyelashes were still dotted with the fake tears she'd squeezed out earlier, sparkling like tiny diamonds under the streetlight. I was suddenly hit with an overwhelming urge. An urge to lean down and kiss her. The thought shocked me so much I almost dropped her. I had to be losing my mind. "Leo," she said again. "What?" My voice was hoarse. "I'm hungry." I let out a long, slow sigh of utter defeat. "What do you want to eat?" "Spicy crawfish. It's the middle of the night. Where am I going to find?" "But I want it." Fine. Holding this infuriating, brilliant, manipulative girl, I started walking down the empty street, searching the entire city for a late-night crawfish joint. In that moment, I gave up fighting. Freedom, a new life, all of it. To hell with it all. I was in her trap, and I was starting to think I'd never get out. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't want to. Chapter 7 after that night, I officially scrapped the distancing plan. I had surrendered. I fell back into my old high school routine, meticulously planning my days around trekking across Atherton's sprawling campus to deliver meals to her. Our class schedules were completely different, which meant I often had to skip some of my less important lectures. My roommates thought I was insane. "Hayes, you're the great hope of the archaeology department. How can you throw it all away for a girl?" My roommate Dave lamented dramatically. "Yeah, man, so the 3 girls in our major are rugged, but there are other departments. A guy like you could have anyone," another roommate, Chris, chimed in. I just continued packing the braised short ribs I'd made into a thermal container. "You guys wouldn't get it," I said without looking up. And they didn't. Chloe wasn't just a girl to me. She was my routine, my responsibility, my addiction. And Chloe, after the bar incident, became even more brazen. She started to publicly claim her territory. If a guy asked her out, she would loop her arm through mine and tell them sweetly, "Sorry, I have a boyfriend. He makes the best barbecue ribs in the entire world." If someone invited her to dinner, she'd point to the container in my hand and say proudly, "No thanks, my boyfriend cooks for me." Before long, the news that Leo Hayes, the archaeology genius, is totally whipped had spread across the entire campus. I became the poster child for guys who get locked down way too early. All I could do was smile wryly. But trouble wasn't far behind. The guy I'd beaten up at the bar, Julian Croft, was a notorious rich kid from the business school. He wasn't the type to let things go. One afternoon, on my way back to my dorm after dropping off Chloe's lunch, I was cornered. Julian stood in front of me, flanked by several other guys. A faint bruise was still visible on his jaw, and his eyes were filled with venom. Well, look who it is, he sneered. I frowned. What do you want? Nothing much. Just wanted to have a little chat, he said, nodding to his friends, who immediately surrounded me. These guys weren't students. They were big, muscular, and had mean faces. My stomach dropped. This wasn't going to be a friendly chat. Julian, this is a school. What are you trying to do? I said, my voice low. What am I trying to do? He laughed, a nasty, grating sound. You think you're a tough guy, right? Today, I'm going to teach you a lesson about respect. He waved his hand. His goons rushed me. It's hard to fight four guys at once, especially when they're professionals who know where to hit to cause the most pain. I fought back as hard as I could, but I was quickly overwhelmed. Pain exploded in my stomach, my back. I fell to the ground, curling up to protect my head and vital organs. Fists and feet rained down on me. Pain. It was sharp, blinding, but I didn't make a sound. I just grit my teeth. Julian strode over and planted his foot on my back, grinding his heel into me. He looked down, his face a mask of sadistic pleasure. How's that feel? Had enough yet? I spit out a mouthful of blood and saliva, glaring up at him. Go to hell. Still talking tough. My defiance enraged him. He drew back his foot, aiming for my head. Just then, a clear, furious voice cut through the air. Stop! I looked over and saw Chloe running toward us. Behind her were several campus security officers. When she saw me on the ground, bruised and bleeding, her eyes instantly turned red. She charged forward and shoved Julian off me with surprising strength. Julian Croft, how dare you touch him? Her voice was shaking, not with fear, but with pure rage. Julian's face paled when he saw security, but he tried to play it cool. Chloe, stay out of this. This is between him and me. Anything that involves him involves me. Chloe knelt and helped me up. When she saw the blood on my mouth, tears immediately started streaming down her face. She turned and glared at Julian, her eyes like a furious lioness protecting her cub. Julian, you just wait. I'm not going to let this go. Then she turned to the security officers who had just arrived. Officers, it was them. They were ganging up on him right here on campus. Arrest them. Julian and his hired muscle were taken away by security. The crowd of students that had gathered slowly dispersed. It was just the two of us. Chloe held me, her tears falling uncontrollably. Does it hurt? Leo, does it hurt? She sobbed, her hands hovering over my injuries, afraid to touch them. I'll live. I managed trying to smile, but the movement pulled at the cut on my lip, making me wince. This is all my fault, she cried even harder. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have. It's not your fault, I interrupted. Even without you, I would have punched that scumbag. She didn't say anything, just kept crying. Watching her fall apart like this made my own heart ache. I raised my uninjured hand to wipe away her tears, but she caught it. She pressed my hand to her cheek. Her tears were hot against my skin. Leo, she looked at me, her voice choked with sobs, but imbued with a new, terrifying resolve. From now on, I'll protect you. Stir the hair, stunned. Looking into her eyes, washed clean by tears but shining with fierce determination, my heart gave a powerful thud. You'll protect me? You're the girl who can't even open a pickle jar. How are you going to protect me? That's what my brain was thinking, but I couldn't bring myself to say it, because the look on her face was so utterly serious. So serious that, for a crazy second, I almost believed her. Chapter 8, I thought Chloe's declaration of protecting me was just something she said in the heat of the moment. At most, I figured she'd just be quicker to call security next time. Once again, I had completely underestimated her. Julian got a slap on the wrist from the university for the on-campus assault, a formal warning that went on his record. But his family clearly had connections because the whole thing was quickly swept under the rug. A few days later, he was back to swaggering around campus, shooting me looks filled with even more hatred and contempt. I ignored him. I couldn't win a fist fight against his hired help. but I could certainly avoid him. I spent my days in class, in the library, or in my dorm, doing everything I could to stay off his radar. I didn't want to cause any more trouble for Chloe, but Chloe had no intention of letting it go. She suddenly became incredibly busy. She spent every spare moment in the library, glued to her laptop, surrounded by stacks of books and papers I couldn't make sense of. I'd bring her dinner, and she'd eat distractedly, her eyes never leaving the screen. "What are you working on?" I asked once. "A corporate takedown," she replied without looking up. "Okay then." A week later, I was reading in my dorm room when Matt called, his voice frantic. "Now, something huge is happening. Check the campus subreddit right now." Confused, I opened my laptop and went to the r/Athenu page. A sticky post with thousands of upvotes immediately caught my eye. Holy crap. Julian Croft's dad's company, Croft Development, under federal investigation for massive tax fraud and labor violations. The post included several redacted screenshots of official-looking documents and a link to a major news outlet. I clicked the link. The headline was stark: prominent Boston developer Croft Development raided by IRS, CEO Daniel Croft taken into custody. The entire subreddit was in a meltdown. No way. Is this for real? I thought Croft Development was untouchable. Guess Julian's trust fund just dried up. The rich kid is about to become the broke kid. This is amazing. I can't stand that guy. He acts like he owns the whole campus. Who leaked this stuff? They must be a freaking genius hacker or something. I stared at the screen, a wild suspicion forming in my mind. I closed my laptop and ran out of my dorm, sprinting toward her college's library. I found her in her usual spot. She was sitting quietly, her laptop closed. She was holding a cup of hot milk, taking small sips. When she saw me, she smiled, her eyes curving into happy crescents. "You're here." I walked up to her table, still out of breath. I held up my phone, showing her the news article, my voice trembling slightly. Did you do this?" She didn't confirm or deny it. She just tilted her head and gave me a playful wink. "Didn't I tell you? From now on, I protect you." Her voice was soft, but her words hit me like a shockwave. I looked at her, the girl I had always seen as a crybaby, a spoiled brat, a troublemaker. She had fulfilled her promise in a way I could never have imagined. Not with fists, not with tears. She had used her intelligence, her incredible ability, to quietly and efficiently dismantle an empire that had seemed invincible. In that moment, I finally truly understood. For 13 years, I hadn't been raising a delicate little flower. I had been raising a fox disguised as a bunny, brilliant, ruthless, and fiercely protective of what was hers. And I was what was hers. I sat down opposite her, speechless for a long time. My mind was reeling with shock and a powerful, undeniable flutter in my chest. "What's wrong?" she asked, watching me. "Are you not happy?" I shook my head, then nodded. I opened my mouth, but I didn't know what to say. "Thank you?" Too formal. That was badass. Too simple. Finally, after a long pause, I managed to say, "Chloe, don't ever do something like this again." Her smile faded. "Why? Didn't you like it?" "No, it's not that." I looked at her, my gaze intense and serious. "I don't want you putting yourself in danger for me. The Crofts are powerful people. What if they try to get revenge on you?" "They won't get the chance," Chloe said calmly, with a confidence that was absolute. "The evidence I sent to the IRS is enough to keep his dad in prison for the rest of his life. When a king falls, the pawns scatter. No one is going to come after us for a fallen family." She paused, then reached across the table and took my hand. "Leo, I know what you're worried about. Before, you protected me, because I was little and I didn't know any better. But I'm grown up now. I can protect myself, and I can protect you. So, you don't have to treat me like a kid anymore." Her hand was soft and warm. My heart felt like it had been struck by lightning. She was right. She had grown up. She wasn't the sniffling little girl who used to trail after me anymore. She was smart, powerful, and had her own agency. And I was still stuck in the past, habitually treating her like the little sister who needed me for everything. I was the one who hadn't grown up. "Chloe." I squeezed her hand, my voice thick with emotion. "I am sorry." "Why are you sorry?" she asked, confused. I took a deep breath, finally summoning the courage to say the words I should have said long ago. "For so long, all I wanted was to get away from you. I thought you were a burden." A shadow passed over her eyes. "But now I know I was wrong," I said, looking directly into her eyes, my voice steady. "I'm the one who can't live without you. Chloe Davis, I think I'm in love with you." The confession was quiet, spoken slowly, but it took every bit of strength I had. The air in the library went still. Chloe stared at me, her long eyelashes fluttering as her eyes slowly, steadily, filled with tears. The tears welled up, then spilled over, rolling down her cheeks. She was crying, not out of sadness or hurt, but from joy. She launched herself across the small table and into my arms, burying her face in my chest and sobbing, crying like a little kid. "Now, you idiot. It took you long enough. I've been waiting for you for 13 years. I held her tight, feeling her body tremble with her sobs, her hot tears soaking my shirt. My own heart was overflowing with a huge, warm emotion I could finally name: happiness. All this time, what I saw as my burden was her deepest love. What I saw as my prison was actually a net she had spent 13 years weaving, a net called love. And I, the stupid bird, had been flying in circles all this time, only to realize I was already caught and I never wanted to be free. I tilted her chin up and kissed the tears from her face. Then I kissed her lips. They were sweet, just like her favorite barbecue ribs.